Greetings. In this video, I'm going to talk about a couple of odds and ends as well as dig a little deeper into the materials for our pavilion. So first, when we were reviewing the first submissions, the first thing that came up was, or Charlene brought up, actually, was putting break lines in these, which is a good point. So once we select the section marks, this is the break line that she was referring to right here. If we just zoom in on that, gaps and segments, so we can just click on that and that breaks, and then we can move this node so it just crosses the wall a little bit. And in general, this is a good idea. It's a good point that she made. Just less lines. Less lines is always better. There's really no need to run these full lines all the way through. So, but you do want to get them. Well, it doesn't actually need to be on the drawing. It could be in line with this other one. That would be fine, I think. But if they're close to the drawing, then I would keep them on like that. I think that should do. No, maybe we should bring it on. Maybe that's a little better. Something to that effect. That should work. Okay, the other topic we brought up was the pedestals that are showing. So I did show you how to make these floors more transparent for different reasons. For reading things below was my idea. When sometimes if you have a CAD plan below, you want to perhaps make it reduce the transparency. You could also come down here and bring it to wireframe. That's another possibility. But let's undo what we did. So let's select the floor and go to the modify. So we are on modify, and we want to get to the view and the paintbrush. So here we are on view. Here's paintbrush, and then we want to again override that category. And then we want to come to open the visibility dialog box, and we're talking about the floors. Transparency is at 100, so let's take that all the way down, say OK, and then we don't see those, which is better. So it's definitely good to know about that opportunity to adjust things. Sometimes it's just temporary. Okay, so next thing I want to talk about when we get to rendering and printing, very important, is to have shadows on. So we want to, let's get to a view. So I created a couple extra views here. And so my shadows are on, and that's right here. Shadows on or shadows off. Okay, so we always want to render with shadows. It always gives more depth, more makes it more real, obviously. So please do turn on the shadows. And then another, and we'll talk about this more when we get to the rendering. Actually, I could just kind of jump into it now. So when we want to render, when we bring this guy up, we have the option here to, I talked about this already, but we have exterior and interior. So that refers to, are we inside or outside the building? So here we're on the exterior. Here we have the sun only because we have no artificial light. That's correct. But then we also have sun settings here. And what we could do here is change the time. So that was at 10 in the morning, and now we've moved to 6 in the evening. So after you set your views with your cameras, you want to get into the rendering box and check this out, because we want to find the right shadows. We don't want the whole thing to be in shadow, but some shadow does always help create depth, helps define the volumes better. So we'll look at that when we get back to the rendering. I'm sorry, I don't think my rendering box was actually on my screen when I did that. So one more time, rendering. So I was talking about here, our exterior, interior, sun option. So again, that's inside the building or outside the building, and then sun, artificial, or both. And then this was the box that I just opened up. It was right here. So this ellipse right here, this under sun settings, and here are the times. And we can apply. And you'll see here that I also plugged in the location of Barcelona. That's another important part. And that we could do, so let me just bring up my cheat sheet here. So putting in the geographic information. So manage project panel location. So manage project location, and then here's the location. And from here, we could do a default city list or the internet mapping. Internet mapping wasn't working for me, so I just came to default city, and there are plenty. All the major cities are here, including Barcelona. So I just plugged that in. All right. So now our sun is correctly set for various whatever time we set it to. But in Barcelona, which is important. And then just good to note actually here on the cheat sheet, I noted that the location provides the basis for weather information, which is used in energy analysis. So mechanical engineers will actually use these Revit models to do energy analysis. So that's very, very important. And then for sister system engineers, it also directly affects the heating and the cooling requirements for a project. So besides making pretty renderings, a lot of important information is included there as well. Okay, so those are a couple odds and ends. Now I want to talk about materials some. So let me get it over to my 3D view here. And I do have this set to realistic, which I really don't need. So I'm just going to put it on hidden line there. And applying materials to a couple of different things I wanted to talk about. One was the columns. I broadly talked about applying it to floor walls, ceilings, and whatnot in the last video. And I'm going to dig into it a little deeper in this one. But a couple of things I didn't mention were when it comes to components that we build or store frames and items like this, the families that are in the model already, the materials are a little different sometimes and a little harder to find. They could be located in numerous different places. So typically, when we have an object here like a floor, again, we go into edit type, and then we will edit the structure, and then we'll go to the category, and we'll do it as such, as I described in the last video. When we select a column, if we go into edit type, we do not have that option. There's no list of materials here. For some components, you will find it here, but not these columns in particular. Okay, so that's a dead end there, and there's also no materials listed right here in the property box. That sometimes is the case. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to double click on the column, open it up by itself, and then here let's select. And once we select it, so when it's not selected, there's no materials here. When I actually select the column, materials appear by category, and then we could jump into this and apply something to it. So we don't have a material listed. So let's just run through this quickly. So I'm going to create my new material. I will rename it, and I will call this Chrome. I'll call it Chrome Columns. And there it is. I will open up the asset browser. Look here. So this would be under metals, I imagine. And there's Chrome. And there's Chrome right there. So that was pretty easy, actually. So I just selected it, hit the double arrows to move it over, and there it is. Good. And then let's just say apply and OK. And that should do. And then we could save that guy. Not on the desktop. Load into project, actually. I overwrite the existing. Yeah, so that will save. At least when we're closing it, it will save. So I don't know why that just took me where it did. But overwrite the existing. Yes. Okay. And then we'll get back to rendering, and we should be able to see that in fact worked. Okay. So that's that one. And now these frames are another story. So here is our curtain wall. Okay. So again, nothing showing up here. If we go into edit type, here we have the frame material as aluminum. Okay. And for our purposes, that will suffice. But we could open it up right there and jump into it and change it here. Okay. So sometimes it's just different paths to find the materials. Okay, so I just wanted to point out. So I think the storefront should be fine with aluminum. I don't know, I doubt it was aluminum in real life. So if it doesn't have the nice shine to it that we might be looking for, then we might go and change it to chrome or stainless steel. Okay? All right. So let's talk about the materials a little more. So let's just jump into, we can go back to realistic, and so we can see a little bit here. Kind of odd. I don't know why that shadow is off on the left the way it is. That's peculiar. So this is where I left off pretty much last class. Here is our travertine, which is the floor of the pavilion. And generally, it should suffice the way that it is, I would say. Let's just rotate this a little bit so we can look at it straight on. So I don't think the travertine needs much work. I'm zooming in and looking at these tile lines, and we'll talk about that with the marble that's coming up. These lines are so subtle that I think the travertine might just be fine, actually. But let's actually bring up the pavilion and look at a couple of pictures here. So here's Pavilion Materials. Let's just back up and look at a couple photos. Michael Stern actually just gave me these pictures from his trip. There are a couple particularly nice ones. I was saying to Michael, it's always amazing how such a small pavilion with so few elements, but I never get tired of looking at different photographs of it. Just so beautiful. He said it was a frigid, frigid day, and actually, if you look here, or let's see, we're here. I guess we could see it here, perhaps. There's actually some frost on this travertine, turning it into an ice skating rink. He said it was actually quite dangerous. This kind of sheen we see over it here. But he had the pavilion to himself, so beautiful, beautiful pictures. Let's look at this wall. Okay, so this is, let's just open it right up so we can zoom in a little bit. So this is the black marble that we're talking about. And it is tiled in real life. So we can see right there that that is a segment there, and we can see another segment here. So it's 3 segments tall, and the length would depend on where it's placed, actually. So what we have to do is try to reproduce that to the best of our abilities. So let's close these. Okay, so we're back in Revit, and I've done a little bit of work to demonstrate with a little more depth how to look at materials and how to adjust them. So I took the same wall and I just Control-C, Control-V, copy and pasted it down the line. So we want to look at, we need individual unique components, okay? So when I click on this wall, it is, they're all basic walls. It's going to be Test 2 Travertine, Test Marble 1, Test Marble 2, and I duplicated Test Marble 2 again. So now this one, to make my point, I am going to edit, I am going to duplicate and rename and make it Test Marble 3. Good. Okay, okay, and Test Marble 3, Test Marble 2. So the point of this, duplicating the components, is that when we get to our model, and right now everything is generic roof or generic floor of varying heights, but if we change this material, for instance, all of our generic floors that are 10 inches wide will change, or we might not want that. In this particular case with the 10-inch one, that's probably okay, because as far as I could recall, only these 2 bottom roofs are that. So that in that situation, it might be okay. But when we get to this one I've already renamed finished floor, but when we get to other ones, for instance, I don't know why that said wall. When we get to other elements, for instance, we might be at risk of changing everything. Everything that's a 4-inch floor, for instance, could change, and we might not want that to be the case. Like, so here's our 12-inch floor. So if I didn't change this, and I had changed, and this still said generic floor 12 inches, and I turned it to travertine, then the sidewalk would be travertine as well. That's not the case. This should just be concrete down here, and this is travertine. So that's why we need to start duplicating and renaming and making them unique, so that when we apply materials to them, they're not applied all across the board. So that was the point of that part. All right, so travertine, as I zoom in, this might be okay because it's such a subtle kind of a texture. I can see the tiling. I see lines here, and I'll talk more about tiling in a moment. For travertine, this might be okay. Those lines might not show up so much, and the pattern, we can kind of just see, it kind of just looks like a light, kind of lighter beige cloud kind of passing through, and the tiles aren't as obvious. Here, though, I could see, even without zooming in, without seeing the lines, here in particular, the lines show up, but you also really see this tile pattern happening. And again, that depends on the application, what the original looks like, or what your design, what you want that to look like. Maybe tiles are appropriate for some materials and some designs, and others they're not. So, all right. So now that we've duplicated the marble, and I wanted to take a look at 3 different marbles. I've populated it with 2, and I'm going to do the last one with you. So now I select this one. This is my test marble 1. I edit the type, edit into the structure, and then here I've applied the marble square stacked polish. Let's expand this so we can see it a little better. Marble square stacked polish, white and black, and that's the name that came right out of the library. So I'm just sticking with those names. Okay, and then let's just leave that at that, and then let's look at the next one. So that's 1, and here's the next one. This is my marble 2 wall type, and then edit here, again edit, and what we have here, so there's the first one that we just looked at previously, and now this one has large veins, which is the the vein-like kind of lines that run through marble. Okay, so those are the 2 that I've populated it with so far. So now I'll do the third. Let's just cancel these. I haven't done anything. These 2 look the same. And now I have a unique wall. This is my third, so now I'm in no danger of applying a different material to it. So structure, edit. And now let's jump into this one, and let us add a new material right there. So default new material, open up our library, and here we have our masonry. So I've gone through these already, but I'm going to show them one more time for you. So there's no marble here under masonry stone. If I jump down here to stone, go to masonry, and there's only one, and it's white. So up here in the Autodesk physical assets, I do not see any other marble opportunities. I might not find a third marble that I think is appropriate, but I'm just going to apply something anyway. So now we'll come down here to the appearance library, masonry, stone, and we have a lot to choose from. So there are numerous marbles, and these 2 I've already done. Now white and brown, white, brown, and black, and white and green, these are not appropriate. I'm going to apply something regardless. And then I'm just going to check down here first at this stone. Here's marble, and white, alabaster, white, rose, square, large veins, travertine. I'm going to see what this one looks like, because I know none of the others sounded like they had much potential. So let me just get this onto my screen so you could see it fully. So I'm going to go with this one, square, large veins. I'm going to double click here. That should have applied it. And it says, it does not look like it. Oh yeah, here it is, square, large veins. Good. Okay, so now I am going to rename this. I'm going to throw in marble, square, large veins. Good. And I'll say apply, okay, okay, okay. And now it does look like I have 3. I'm going to move them a little closer together so I can see them. And I do see 3 different marble types. Okay. And now let's look into the tiling. So just for reference, these were samples. They all started at the pool and they went up to the bottom of the ceiling. So they're about the right size. They are about the right size. So they start at the pool rather than the finished floor, but they're roughly the right size. So now I'm going to click on this guy, edit, edit, edit to appearance. And this is what we care about right here. This is the tiling. So now I'm going to double click on this. And now we are into the texture editor and we can see the tile. So here we have confirmation that we're tiling in both. So we could turn off the tiling, but this pavilion, the granite is tiled. In fact, we're taking a piece of granite and duplicating it, duplicating it, duplicating it. Of course, every every piece of granite is unique, and that's not what Revit is doing, but that's what we will do. We'll have to live with that situation. We could turn it off. So something like continuous wood siding, you wouldn't want that to be tiled, for instance. Stucco wouldn't have any lines in it. It's a continuous surface. But slabs of tile, it's appropriate to tile them. So we're tiled going in both directions, horizontal and vertical, and here we have the size of the tiles. So they are very small. A lot of tiles fitting just in this 9 inches. So, and this lock is telling us that they are, if we change one, they're both going to change. So we could turn that off, meaning that we're going to keep it as a square. So maybe we'll turn it off of the square actually. And we'll do the height. So I'm just kind of taking guesses. You're going to have to look at the photographs and kind of work it out. So let's say if this is about a 10-foot wall. So let's say maybe we want the height to be about 3. So let's see if we could accomplish 3 tiles across, accounting for the whole height. And then the width would actually be longer. So let's put that in at 6 and see what this does for us. Apply, OK, OK, OK. And that made a change. It's not enough. It's not enough, but it did make a change. So let's just go back in one more time. Edit, 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 open, appearance, and get into that tile. So when I was punching in these numbers, roughly 3 by 6 feet, I was thinking that would be one size of the tile, but actually we have, it looks like we have about six different granite tiles making up this whole thing. So this really needs to get a lot bigger. I'm not going to do all the math now. I'm just going to increase these by about 6-fold actually. So I'll make this 18. I'm going to make this 36 feet and just see what happens. There's a lot of experimentation that has to happen at this point. It's not as easy of a recipe. So it really blurred it out. It does not look too good. We'll just leave it at that and see how it renders regardless. But let's try some others. So let's edit, and I do encourage you. I didn't make it an assignment, but I do encourage you to line up a couple and maybe not. It might be easier to kind of play with this and to get a feel as to what's happening before you actually get into your own model. And also importantly, as you'll see, what I'm going to do next is render these, and then I can see how they all render next to each other. So let's get into this one. I'm doubtful about what's going to happen with that last one. It doesn't look promising. So I'm going to turn this off again, and I'm going to make, so they are definitely longer than they are. So let's do 12, and let's do a height of about 3 and see what that does for us. Done, apply, OK, OK, OK. Looks okay. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. Until you render, you're really not sure. And I'm just going to leave that as it is for now. And then let's just do some rendering and see what kind of results we get. Okay, so with rendering, I was also doing some experimenting, and here I just brought up this folder. So we could render in Revit and we could render in the cloud. And I talked about the importance of the cloud in our introduction, so I'm not going to go on too much about it. The moral of the story is it's super quick and it doesn't bog down your computer. So these two happened on the cloud, and these happened within the computer. And this one was set to high quality with a DPI of 600. This was set to, you could even just even in the view here, you could kind of see as you go from the 600 down to the 150 DPI, you could see how much fuzzier it is. And these are all print quality as opposed to screen quality. And then when I go into the cloud, they use different, they don't use the same terminology. I don't know why. It's unfortunate in terms of the quality. This one's called standard, and it's large. And then this one is final print quality and extra large. So I don't know if you could see it, but I could see it does get a little more crisp. So this is the best quality. And, ideally you're not saving this till the very last minute, this rendering, because it takes time and it takes multiple efforts, multiple renderings really to get it right. So I would save, ideally a few days to do it and just keep experimenting and re-rendering and re-rendering. It's the only way it really works out well is you're not going to get it right on the first. That's kind of just the moral of the story. That's how that works. So now let us jump into the rendering. So I'm going to render this view just as it is. So let's go to View, Render. So this is the dialog box as opposed to Render in Cloud. Okay. I'm just going to close that one more time. Let's get back here. Sorry, I just made a rendering that didn't work out, so that's why I just had to stop the tape. But we are back, View, Render, back here. And so this should work. So now we are on high 600. That's good. And everything looks good. So the region that's important to click. So that's just going to show us, we're just going to render what we're looking at as opposed to the entire model. So now let's hit render and see what happens here. Okay, so it's moving pretty slowly, all right? So I am not going to finish this out. It's just not worth it. I'd rather do it on the cloud. So you get a sense as that it's not going to be very, very long, but it's going to take probably 2 minutes. So I'm going to stop this operation. I'm just going to move right to the cloud, and I showed you my results anyway. So this is the result. That is what happened. And I'm going to show you these in Photoshop in a moment as well. But I want to finish a rendering in the cloud first. Okay, so that's how that works. Important when I finished it. Let me just finish one of them actually for you. I'm just going to do a quick draft, and let's just render that super quick. Hopefully. Okay, so we see that happened very, very quickly. And the draft just isn't worth it. I mean, I think the draft is confirming that this tiling just destroyed that image. So I'll probably go back and repair that actually before we do one more rendering. This one's even a little suspect too. But it's really hard to evaluate these things when it comes to draft renderings. The important point that I wanted to get to though was either we could save it to the project where it's going to show up down here in the project browser as a rendering. And you could do that. That should be fine for you in general. If you want to put it into Photoshop for any reason to add people or to add a sky, we're not going to get to that for this first project. We'll definitely get to that in Revit 2 if you're going to join me for Summer 2. We're going to do a lot of that. But in this quick 6-week version, we just don't have time to get into it now. So in that case, you'd want to export it. Okay, that's the moral of the story. So export, and then you just save it to wherever you want to save it to. Okay, I'm going to close this, and I'm going to start again. So now I'm going to go to render to the cloud, and this is definitely worth knowing. So up here you can see that I've signed in to Autodesk, and this is what comes up. I'm going to turn this off so I don't have to see it every time. So to do this, on the next screen, we're going to select the view. So I have not selected the view actually, so I'm just going to cancel this one more time. Stop that. So what we have to do is create views. So we don't render the default. So this is the default view, and I just happen to navigate and set this up. So that is not what we want. What we want is to set up a view to look at these things. So here I set up this view, and here's this view. Okay, and then I'm just going to move this to realistic, and this is the view that I want to render actually. So I'm just going to select this crop box and just look at these three. I'll add the Travertine to the mix. Why not? Just move it over a little bit, and we'll render these 4. Okay, so that's a view that I set up with a camera, and I'll go over that again shortly. Okay, so now one more time. View, render in cloud. So we're selecting the view, and then it will notify us when it's done. And this works quite well. So I'll just say continue. And this is 3D view 2. That's confirmed. Still image confirmed. So you could also do panoramic, or you could do stereo panoramics where they actually move. First, let's get just still renderings down before we jump into that fun stuff. Rendering quality. Okay, so I'm going to go right to the end to final, and I'm going to move it right up to extra large. I'm going to do a high quality one, and it will email me when it is complete. And it talks about credits, but you don't need any if you're a student. Render, and it is going now. We can see it up top going, and I will get an email when it's complete. Okay, and then we'll look at them. Well, I'm going to jump into Photoshop. I'm not going to wait. I'm going to show you some of the results now, and then maybe that'll be done before the video's over. So I'm going to bring up Photoshop now. Okay, and these are my 4 renderings from my folder here. Okay, so again, 2 of them happened in the cloud, and 2 of them happened in the computer. And now I know a lot of you probably are not very familiar with Photoshop, but some of you are. And again, in our advanced CAD applications in Summer 2, we're going to dig into this a lot deeper. It's you know, for our purposes, if you're just showing things on the screen, it's a lot more kind of forgiving. But if you want to get into high quality renderings and print quality renderings for your portfolio, you need to take this to the next level and really to understand what's going on when we start looking at these pieces. So here's my high quality print at 150 dpi. Here it is at 600, and you can kind of see the change. It goes from fuzzy, like useless fuzzy, to sharper, and then we're going into the cloud, and between these, yeah, I could see the difference. It's crisping up a little bit over there, and that's a little fuzzier. So we always talk about the importance of the size of an image size. Again, this isn't something you have to go through. As long as you're making high quality prints, renderings, this is not something you have to work through, but I'm going to go through it just quickly. So image size, I'm going to unclick this. So now the size of the image plus the resolution are all locked in together, and 72 is a decent resolution for the screen, but for printing, and pay attention to this, what happens here. So we're at nearly 3 by 6 inches is the size of this rendering. When I move it to 220 for print quality, this thing is just a thumbnail. So when it goes to your portfolio or to a board that you want to print, this thing is so small it's useless. It's 2 by 3 inches. No good. Can't do anything with that. I will change that. Let's just say okay. And now it is of print quality resolution, but it is really small. I'm just going to quickly do the same for all of these so that we have the same resolution across the board. 220. And now we're at 10 by 4 inches. So better. For a small portfolio, that's okay. For a big display board, it wouldn't really work. Now we're getting into the cloud renderings that are large. Standard quality, large. And let's see what that shows us. At 220, we are at 6 by 3 inches. And then our final cloud rendering is 14 by 6 inches. So getting better. Okay. And when I zoom in, let's zoom into the ones on the right in particular. So now this is at 100% of its size. So this is basically what it would look like if printed. This is at 62%. So let's move into 100. So now we're at 100, and you can see that we're further away because that's because the image is so much smaller. Okay. Let's zoom in to 100%, and there we are. So you could kind of see that it's a bit pixelated. And let's zoom into 100. Oh, we were at 100 there already. So that's 100. So we're so far away. So this is just showing at comparable sizes. Okay, so all of these are at 220 print quality. They're all at 100% of their size. And we could easily see the difference between them. All right, this being the best. Okay, so that is kind of the long story. The importance of making high quality renderings that should be done in the cloud, otherwise they're going to take forever on your computer, as in high quality could go overnight. It could take 12 hours. People in the classroom just leave those computers running, hoping that IT doesn't shut down computers at night, hoping that another student doesn't accidentally turn the computer off or whatever. That's the benefit of going to the cloud, okay? All right, so this thing is still churning. And so, okay, we're back. Good. So this rendering is happening. The render queue time is at about 10 minutes. All right, so it's still occurring. And you'll be able to come and see this yourself, on your own, that is. Okay? So we'll come back and we'll take another look at that when it's done. All right, so now I'm going to jump back into, let's jump back into this view. Actually, let's just start anew. Let's just start one more new view from the top. All right, so here we are in our finished model, and I'm going to drop another camera in. I'm going to create another view. I just want to go through that a little more slowly with you. So let's go to here, to our quick access bar, to camera, and I'm just going to start. I'm going to stand in the water actually and look this way. And let's click right there. And there we are. So we're standing in the water. And then let's just talk a little bit more about cameras and views. So I'm going to open this up. There's nothing up above us. There's really nothing below us besides more pool. Let's see what we could see. So I don't want to stretch out that far. I actually want to come in closer. I'll keep the end of this wall here. And so we don't want too much sky. So this is the focal point. It's nice and centered. I am going to come closer though. Too much pool. Too much pool. So you have to think about what's really, is there any benefit to all this wall? Is there any benefit to more pool, more wall on this side? I don't think there is. So get us closer. Get us closer to the subject then. I do like a little bit of this wall, but, I think 2 feet does as much as 10 feet, for what it's accomplishing. It's just informing us that there's a wall there. So I think this looks pretty good. I could actually come in a little closer there. Yeah, I could come in quite a bit closer there. And I'm going to keep that top of the wall. We'll see what that looks like. All right. So I'm in the view. I'm just going to click. So I'm in the view, and I've stopped fussing with that box. And right now it's just telling us 3D view. If I select that box, it tells us that now it is showing some camera information. All right. And that camera is here, okay? So that's the rendering settings. We don't have to mess with that now. But right now, the eye and the target, all right? So our eye, where we're standing in the pool, and the target are both at 5'6". Let's see what happens. And in general, you want an eye elevation that's normal height, around 5 or 6 feet. There are exceptions, there definitely be exceptions. I'm going to move the target down to 1, and let's just see what happens. So we just saw that jump. Let's just go back. So back to 5, apply, and then back to 1, apply. So when the target dropped, it looked a little better to me. Let's see what happens if we do a target at 0. It's just slightly bringing that up. I wonder if we can do a negative number, actually. -2 feet. Yeah, so it's kind of centering the whole thing up. I kind of like that a little bit more, actually. And let's just see what happens if we bring this down. So typically we don't do that, but I kind of actually like it a little bit in this case. Let's just say 5. But now we're kind of looking down on the water. Let's just see what 15 looks like. So that's not too natural, and that doesn't really help us. Let's go to 3. I think I like that. So it's not normal height. It's a little lower than normal height at 3'6", and the target's particularly low, but I think that composition looks pretty good. Okay, and then from there we would want to render. I haven't applied materials to any of this. So that is not going to be particularly interesting, but I'll set it up to render in the cloud anyway. So we could continue, and I'm going to move this up to final and up to extra large, and I'm going to render it. And I'm going to check back with you when these are done. Okay, I am back, and the renderings are about done. So let's bring up the Barcelona Pavilion here, my renderings, and this just took an additional, by the time I stopped that video, it was just an additional 5 minutes had lapsed, and they are done. So this is what they look like. This is what your gallery in the cloud will look like. So these are my 4 material samples. I just downloaded them, and I'll do the same. Well, this guy I'm not going to download. But it looks good. It looks really clean and crisp. Obviously no materials, but well, there's some stainless applied to the or chrome applied to those, but in general it looks good, clean and crisp, and generally like my composition. I think it might have cut off my top actually here. I thought I preserved some of that wall there, but we'd have to evaluate it with materials. But in general, that's how that works. Okay, and let me just jump back, and I wanted to take one more look at here. Okay, so now I got it in Photoshop, so that's that image, and I renamed it so it's material test, so it's final extra large. So that's the cloud setting, final extra large. So it's I think it's very good to be systematic and to take notes and to know exactly how you accomplished what you did, to keep a paper trail. It's impossible to remember it all. So if we just jump up to image size, and it's similar to another one that we had. So if we bring this to 220, now we have a 13 by 5 image. And let's zoom in. Let's actually take a quick look at that travertine as well. So that looks quite good. And we're zoomed in at about 300%, and it's not pixelating or anything. So that looks very nice. Let's just zoom out a little bit and look at these 3. Okay, and let's take one more look at the image, actually, which I opened up here. So this was Michael's image, and I can just, so let's change this as well. So we're looking at everything in high quality, 220. So it's a tiny, tiny little image. So that is the wall that we are looking at. It's already starting to pixelate a little bit. It's at 300, and I could see some pixelation. But it's so we've got primarily a gray with some blacks, and then we see the kind of white trailing through. And I think looking, if we jump back and forth. So overall, it has a bit of a gray quality to it. I think this middle one is probably the most appropriate. Again, I think it needs work with the, there's just too much white in here. This is too busy. I think even if you adjusted the tiling for this one, it wouldn't be the best. I think this is the winner. I think it needs more work with the tiling to improve. And then you could also turn the tiling off and see how that looks. You know, I'm not going to be overly uptight about when it comes to grading. You know, I think it should be definitely in the neighborhood, but I don't expect you to reproduce, you know, on your first Revit model ever to reproduce the pavilion perfectly. You know, if you get in as close as I am, and then with some this needs some refining in terms of the tiling. I think it's getting close. So just one more time, I just want to point out what that was. So that was marble square stacked polished with white and black. Marble square stacked polished white and black. So that's the name of it in my Revit library. Okay, so that is a little more on the libraries. I wanted to talk about one or two more things very quickly. So I have let's see, I have a sheet called elevations here with nothing on it. I'm going to drop an elevation in, a southern elevation. Let's pull that right in. Drop that. Let us select, activate the view, drop it to a 1/16 of an inch, deactivate the view, and place that. All right, and all the sheets I saw looked really generally quite good. One more time, just deactivate. So what I'm getting at, I don't need to repair that now, is getting, so again, we created views, 3D views, and this is the one that I wanted to look at. Okay, so I want to add this to the sheet actually. So I don't want to render this. I'm just going to not go to there. I'm going to go to, I'm just going to drop it actually on the sheet. That's what I'm going to do. Go back to my sheet, and this is 3D View 3. So you might, I would rename these things. You know, it's really, I mean, I'm not going to be working at your computer, but it drives me mad when I'm working at a student's computer and everything, and the titles just have no description. So this is south elevation. I'll just call it a 3D view. So you really need to name things so that it's not just, everything is not just the same type of a name. So let's get back to our elevations, and then let's get back to our, I think it was 3D, nope, I renamed it. Good, let's drag that on. And there it is. Okay, so that is a simple line drawing with the shadows turned on. I don't know that I'd leave this wall in shadow, but just to talk about again the sheets and things that look good together. So this elevation is very flat. It doesn't give us any real sense of depth. So these elevations are particularly not interesting, I would say. I mean, nice proportions you could see, but otherwise it doesn't tell us a lot. But then this next to that, it begins to tell us a lot more. It starts to make a lot more sense. We can see the bench buried back there, so it provides the depth that we need to better understand that elevation. So this is the beginning of a very good sheet, I would say. Okay, one last final piece that I want to go over, and that's duplicating the pool. Let's just take another look at some photos, actually. Here, so Barcelona Pavilion pools. So if the photographs don't, the photographs I provided, if they don't cover it, we could see. So you might not get back into rendering this. You could get back into this pool, which has a nice black. I don't know why this looks like a bad rendering to me. Yeah, that's all that is. So this looks real to me, and I think that there is perhaps a marble down there, but usually students don't get back into this corner to render. But if Revit City, you could find this statue, this could be a beautiful rendering. But we often see this. We often see this pool with the stone at the base of it here. So I want to talk about how to do this. Okay, so it's this pool, the large pool here. So let's jump into that section. Here's our floor, and here's the floor of the pool. I'm going to Control C, Control V, and now I've duplicated the pool. Now this is always a little, you know, you have to be careful doing this, making sure everything's lined up. It's a little kind of a free-for-all. And you could see from above, you could see the pool, and then you see this dashed line running around it. So my cursor is stuck to the bottom right-hand corner of that pool, which doesn't really help me. So I'm going to line up these dashed lines left to right, and then I really can't see exactly where the top of this pool is. So I'm kind of taking a guess, which I don't like to do, but there goes. So now I select that, and I think that this, let's see, if I select that, I don't know, either they're not touching or they're overlapping. Nope, they're not touching. So I'm going to bring that straight up until they lock into place nicely. So there's one, and there's two. So I generally don't like eyeing things like this, but it's the easiest way, as long as you take care to do it right. So nicely stacked in this direction. Let's jump into this section and make sure that, yes, it is all nicely aligned. Okay, so now we have the two pools. All right, so we have water on top of a pool. So let's quickly run through this super quick. Edit, duplicate, and let's make this large pool water. So it's no longer a generic floor. Okay, and let's edit and duplicate this guy. And this will be stone base for large pool. Okay. Okay. So I'm not even going to look at this anywhere else. I'm just going to do it right here quickly, and then we could take a look and see what we accomplished. So let's go into Edit by category. Nothing's applied yet. Create a new material. Rename it. Water. Open up here. And I believe there's a liquids. Liquids, there we go. And there it is. So we have clear water. That sounds good to me. And we also have the appearance library down here with more liquids, quite a bit more. I don't know. So some we see ripples in. We definitely don't want anything murky or reflecting pool. I'm just going to go with water calm. So again, it might be enjoyable and informative to try a number of these on some samples off to the side. So calm water has been applied. Good. Apply. Okay. 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 So that is the calm water. And now let's jump into this guy. Edit. 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 New material. Rename. And I will make this stone base for large pool. So it's named the same as the same as its component. The material and the component are named the same. And we are looking for stone. Stone, open up. And this is not going to help us. This is not what we need. So let's jump down here. Stone. And here. Exposed aggregate. That is not really it. It's really river stone is what we're looking for. Not rubble. Let's see. It might be under site actually. I don't see anything. This is river stone. That could do it. That might do it. I'm gonna apply that one. Actually, let's take a look under site as well. Site work. This is where we see grass, pavers, sand. No, I'm not seeing it. I'm going to jump back and I'm going to stick with stone here. I did apply it already, so let's just call that good for now. River stone. That's not exactly it. I'm going to take one more look. It's often called river stone is what it would actually be. That doesn't mean that Revit did the same. River stone. That's what it's called here. That's what I just did, but it didn't look too good to me. But I'm gonna run with it anyway. See how it looks. Apply. Okay. 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 All right. Good. Now this guy we need to adjust him. We need to get to the what is that? To the paintbrush. Override by category is fine. Open this up and no, not by category. Sorry. By element. Let's do this by element. And here's our transparency. So I'm going to cut that in half. So I'm not sure what would have happened by element, to be honest. It only went into floors, and if it treated all the floors, again, we just undid the transparency. So I just want to do it for this one element. So I'm cutting that transparency in half. So by element. Okay. All right. Let us set a. Actually, I don't know if I need. Let's just jump back to our. I think we already have one of these that should work. Here we go. And let's just do a quick rendering and see what that shows us. Render. I'll do a high one. Let's do print. And we'll do the entire thing and sun setting. No, we're okay. Let's run with the rendering and just see if this worked. My computer is so this looks decent. It's not the exact stone. That is river stone. The river stone that's in there is actually more like kind of like baseball like and soft and round. This looks pretty nice to me actually. So if you don't find the river stone, that's in the photographs. This will suffice. Let's just zoom in once this rendering's done. But that looks quite nice to me. All right, a little fuzzy, but in general, I think that works. That definitely begins to tell the story. Okay, folks, thank you. I know that was a long video and a lot of kind of loose ends and a lot more on materials. You really just have to kind of get in there and start working with the materials to make it work. Okay, good luck and thank you.